So everybody knows that NASCAR is going to run at the Circuit of the Americas this year on May 23rd. And likewise, Goodyear had to run some tests to make sure that they would get the tires right for the road course so that, there wouldn't be another race like the Indianapolis race from 2008 for the Cup Series where drivers had to pit every 10 laps because the tires kept blowing out. And so they chose Martin Truex Jr. to drive the Toyotas, Chase Elliott to drive the Chevys, and Brad Keselowski to drive the Fords. And I was getting curious thinking about how good Martin Truex Jr. is at the road courses. And I was looking at some of his stats on Racing Reference. And then I noticed that he's been extremely good at the road courses for like the past 3 years or so. He's been a very good road course racer, like most of his career. But the past 3 years are just extremely... He's just probably one of the top 2 road course racers in the field right now, I'd say. And I'll show you why. The first road course race on the 2017 Cup Series schedule was Sonoma, and in this, Martin Truex Jr. led 25 laps, and he ran top 5 for most of the race. But an engine failure late while he was running third, and with Brad Keselowski waiting to pit, he was, hoping for a late race caution so that he could take advantage of that and then hopefully restart near the front of the field. Technically, Martin Truex Jr. was second because there ended up being no caution, I believe, after a while. So Brad Keselowski cycled back into where he was running before he had that pit strategy gamble. And Martin Truex Jr. showed race-winning speed throughout the race, and he also managed to pass Kevin Harvick, the car who ended up winning the Sonoma race a couple of times, and he looked like he was the class of the field along with Kyle Busch, but ultimately, because of bad luck, Kevin Harvick prevailed over him. And who knows, if his engine didn't blow up, I'd say he would have at least finished top 2, and he probably had a good shot at winning. So this would have been his first road course win in the year 2017. Then the second road course race of 2017 was at Watkins Glen. And of course, he won this race with Matt Kenseth finishing close behind. He ran out of gas after he crossed the finish line, I believe. So he pretty much had this one in the bag after taking a fuel gamble. And if he had won the race prior at Sonoma, he would have had 2 road course races in a row. And this is just the beginning of what could have been a period of Martin Truex Jr. dominance at road courses. And then we get to the year 2018, the infamous year of the Big Three. The first road course race of the season was at Sonoma again, and this race Truex won because Cole Pearn managed to trick Rodney Childers into calling Kevin Harvick down to pit road early because he had the 78's pit crew stand on the wall as if Martin Truex Jr. was going to come down pit road, but he drove by, and because Rodney Childers saw that they were, it looked like they were about to get ready for Martin Truex Jr. to come in, they called in Kevin Harvick. And then Martin Truex Jr. went for like 5 or more laps after that, running around and pulling a gap to Kevin Harvick. And then he came in for fresher tires, and ultimately he won because he had fresher tires and because Cole Pearn was just a strategic genius that day. Then we come to the race where Chase Elliott scored his first career Cup Series win. Martin Truex Jr. was running pretty close to Chase, about like 2 to 5 tenths away from him the last stint, and then he ran out of gas with about 1 or 2 laps to go, and so this kind of gave Elliott some breathing room so that he wouldn't be forced into any mistakes that could lead to Martin Truex Jr. capitalizing and passing him. And then on the cool down lap, Chase Elliott lost gas. He ran out of gas on that lap. And then they had Jimmy Johnson push him around the track, kind of like from the original Cars movie where Lightning McQueen pushed around the 43. But I guess it'd be a reversal of the old guy pushing the new one. So I think that maybe if Martin Truex Jr. just had some better luck and just saved more gas, and if Chase Elliott was a little bit more... if he was able to be pressured more, and then if he used up more of his gas, then it probably could have been a closer battle for the win. And if Martin Truex Jr. won this race, it would have been his 4th road course win in a row, which ties Chase Elliott's current record. And Unlike Chase Elliott, I don't think that he would have been bitten by a a caution called for rain, which stops immediately when the caution is called out at the next race, which is Charlotte Roval. I'm sure many Martin Truex Jr. and Jimmy Johnson fans remember this race very fondly. Ryan Blaney won his only race of 2018 at this race because Martin Truex Jr. and Jimmy Johnson kind of came together in the final corner, and they had an accident which led to Ryan Blaney going along and passing him by. Basically, if Jimmy Johnson doesn't spin out like before that last corner, if he just has maybe a little bit more brake bias to the rear or something, he probably isn't going to spin, and there's a good chance that Truex is able to hold him off and win, unless we see Johnson kind of do a kamikaze move like he did at the 2019 Busch Clash, where he spun Paul Menard to win. So, I mean, you never know. There's a lot of hypotheticals in this scenario, but I think that Martin Truex Jr. would have been able to hold Jimmy Johnson off for the win at the Roval in 2018. And this would have been his 5th win at a road course in a row if everything lined up for him correctly that year, or the past couple of years. Then we get to 2019, and here we have the race at Sonoma. Truex Jr., of course, won this race for the 2nd year in a row, and I'd say he was pretty dominant with 59 out of 90 laps led. And the only real challenge he had was from Kyle Busch, who burned up his tires trying to close the gap to Truex, and then he kind of just fell off afterwards, and he couldn't catch up. And if he did manage to catch up, he probably wouldn't have passed him because the giant-ass spoiler creates such a big air bubble around it, and especially at road courses, nobody can pass. So Truex was pretty much a lock to win this. The only other driver I can really think of that might have had winning speed was William Byron, but he sacrificed the win to get stage points because, he was a playoff hopeful car and he wasn't going to be a lock because he didn't win a race that year, and he didn't really, nobody really thought that he was going to win a race that year just because, it's William Byron and he's still developing. This would have also been Martin Truex Jr.'s 6th road course race win in a row, which would have tied Jeff Gordon for the record all time. Then finally, we get to the last race I'm going to talk about today, the 2019 race at Watkins Glen. Here, he finished 2nd to Chase Elliott, who was extremely dominant today, but Martin Truex Jr. kept them honest throughout the race, and there was a couple of late race restarts where Truex Jr. had the opportunity to take the lead, but ultimately he couldn't pass him just because, the dirty air. And I think the cars that Martin Truex Jr. and Chase Elliott had were pretty damn even. But because of the giant-ass spoiler in the back creating all that dirty air, Truex couldn't muster up a pass just, because literally the air is blocking him from getting close enough to Chase Elliott. There was also a couple of times where I thought they were going to wreck on the restarts because they were like bumper to bumper and like door slamming each other. But I still believe that perhaps with the 750 horsepower package at the road course races that year, Truex Jr. could have won at Watkins Glen in 2019, and he could have set the record for the most road course race wins in a row with 7. But I mean, who knows? If you think about these hypotheticals, there's nothing guaranteed because they're hypotheticals. And you're trying to change events which happened in our timeline, and then who knows what could have happened in the other timeline. Maybe something else would have happened that would have just screwed over him somehow in another way. Nonetheless, this is just an incredible run to have from 2017 to 2019, where Truex basically would have been unbeatable at the road courses. So, yeah, that's what I noticed after just reading up a bit on his history at road courses. And I hope you guys enjoyed discovering just how damn good he is.